So the culture in the industry is known to be very different from that in academia. What caught you off guard in your first few months that you started working?
Absolutely, very different from academia. I wouldn't disagree at all with that. I would say what was surprising was the pace of work and the pace of learning as well. I think in academia, particularly when you're doing a PhD, you're very used to kind of going in deep, really deep, and chasing sort of one idea or question in a lot of depth. Whereas what matters in industry is not necessarily the breadth, but the ability to zoom in and out as required. And that is a different kind of cognitive skill. And this is something that I think, the PhD didn't prepare me well enough. And it was a bit of a learning experience over the last few years.
And is there also an element of adapting to the more, I guess, collaborative, communicative nature of industry? Because I'm imagining that when you're doing your PhD, a lot of it was your individual work, individual expertise, working with those experiments, and less of working in a big team, let alone multiple teams. So, how was that transition for you?
100%. I think in academia, as I often say, you don't have a client, you don't have a deliverable, and you don't have a product. It's just open-ended and pure pursuit of human curiosity in many ways. Whereas once you turn into the more commercial world, you would have either a product that you're working towards, a customer, a client, something of that sort. So there are expectations and constraints within which you must operate and function. And you're also working, as we discussed, on sometimes much shorter time scales, because industry can be a little bit impatient in terms of achieving its impact. And it's a competitive environment as well, because if you're slow in your pursuit, your competitor can obviously go in and capitalize on that. So all of these external factors ultimately means that when you're working in industry, you're working as a team. Your effort alone is not enough. You have to amplify human effort, and the only way to do that is to all work together in a cooperative and collaborative way. So I think communication is very different. From an academic perspective, I felt that in the first few months or weeks, industry was almost over communicative. But I do see the importance of it now, especially kind of having done this for 3 years. Certainly, over communicative in a team environment is often better than lack of communication at all.
How do you maintain scientific rigor and intellectual curiosity when you're working in a commercial environment?
It's a very good question. I mean, for people who are specifically working within the life sciences sector, I think this is sometimes easier to do than if you're working in, let's say, TMT or entertainment or something of that sort. Because ultimately, even if you're involved in a very commercial project, let's say about maximizing the revenues of a drug, it's not like selling a television, right? If you want to differentiate between drug X and drug Y, you have to understand all the properties of the two drugs, the different patients and demographics they might be more suited to, the efficacy, the data, the trial design, and all of that. So it's inherently a scientific pursuit in that regard. So anyone who has done a life science PhD and is kind of afraid that, if I go into the commercial world, things might get diluted and I wouldn't have my scientific rigor, I would say do rethink that position, because it's in many ways even more demanding in terms of scientific integrity and rigor, because ultimately your paper, if you're publishing a paper, gets reviewed by 3 or 4 peer reviewers. But if you're bringing a drug to a market that is impacting millions of lives, that data gets scrutinized by not just the regulators and the doctors, but the market itself.